Today on Monson Made This, we are showing you how to up your Instagram sandwich game.
Brian Little.
Japan. Welcome to Monson Made This, where we cook amazing, delicious vegan food. Today I am joined in the kitchen with Chris, Ben, our fabulous cameraman's mom, and if you've ever looked at the kitchen before and loved the way that it looks, she's responsible for painting the cabinet. So all of you out there that have wondered what the color was, I don't even know what the color is.
It's Rust-Oleum.
Rust-Oleum.
But it's, yeah, gray.
But it's like a bluish gray.
Yeah.
Anyways, we've gotten a lot of compliments on it. So she's responsible, so all thanks goes to Chris. So today, as I teased in the beginning, we're going to be making some amazing sandwiches. And they're inspired by photos that I've seen on Instagram. Are you on Instagram?
Yes.
You are?
No.
Oh, I was going to say, wait, she's got a secret Instagram account she hasn't told us about. So I've seen a couple of pictures of these sandwiches on Instagram. Essentially what they are Japanese sandwiches. They're really cute. They take really great pictures. And when you cut them up, they are formatted perfectly for an Instagram picture. So both of them have egg in them, but they don't really have egg. We have an Eggplant Katsu sandwich, which is incredible, that we're going to be air frying some marinated eggplant. And then we're going to be making a tofu egg salad. So yeah, stick around, we'll show you how to make these. Before you can make the Eggplant Katsu sandwich, you have to make a few things the night before. Here I have a vegan katsu sauce. I have the eggplant, which is marinating here in a broth that will be in the full recipe that'll be linked below. And I have some spicy Japanese style cucumber pickles. Now, the reason you want to make these the night before is so that they all have a time to marinate and develop flavor. So this katsu sauce normally is not vegan. It's ketchup, a little bit of vegan Worcestershire sauce, which, did you know there's vegan?
I didn't.
Worcestershire
but
sauce?
there's anchovies in regular Worcestershire.
Right, so smell it. You can smell it. It smells exactly like...
Oh yeah, exactly.
It smells exactly like the real stuff, but yeah, it just doesn't have anchovies. It's really easy, just throw a few ingredients in, but it's nice if it sets overnight just so that the flavors can develop. The pickles here, really easy, just cucumbers, rice wine vinegar, added some scallions, some sugar, salt. Again, the full recipe will be linked below, but it's nice to let these sit out there, sit in the fridge the night before, just so those pickles develop flavor. The eggplant, obviously the most important. It does need to marinate for, I would say, at least 12 hours.
What's the purpose of the bowl?
So this bowl is what's weighing down the eggplant so that they can absorb all the flavor. I actually did flip them like halfway through, like after a few hours. I
bottom to top, top
exactly.
To bottom. Okay.
And I have kombu in here. There's some vegetable broth and some scallions that I charred a little bit. And it's just kind of a really rich, flavorful
So you didn't have
broth.
to let the eggplant weep it all, like salt and weep it if you were like making eggplant, you know, another way to get the moisture out. The marinade takes care of all that. Right, so
I really like the marination technique here because it's really salty. It not only imparts the flavor into the eggplant, but it also does the same thing that salting it would, where it kind of draws out some of that bitterness. And I also think that when it cooks, it actually is tenderized a little bit, so you don't have to cook it as long. And it does the same thing that like the salt weeping does, but you get the benefit of the added flavor. So we're gonna start next with breading the marinated eggplant. So I'm gonna straighten things up here a little bit, get our breading station going, and then we'll get breading. Okay. The breading for the eggplant is very similar to what I did in my air fryer 101 recipe, and we're going to be using chickpea flour as the batter base, and then we're going to be using panko breadcrumbs as the breading. So I'm going to have Chris pour the breadcrumbs into this bowl, and what I'm going to be doing here is adding a few spoonfuls of the marinating liquid to the chickpea flour, and this is what is going to become the batter, which would be essentially like what the egg would be in a traditional battering recipe. So this actually looks like a little bit on the thick side, so I'm going to thin it out a bit more. And the reason I'm using this marinade is just because it's full of flavor. and it's just gonna help make the breading taste better because we're not really gonna season the crumbs too much. Hopefully all the flavor is in the eggplant itself and in the batter. One thing too, a note about chickpea flour is it tastes terrible when it's raw. So I would say taste for seasoning, but don't lick your fingers. I mean, you can get an idea of the salt level if you want, but you'll probably be put off by the bitter kind of gross flavor if you taste it at this point. So don't judge your chickpea flour batter by the flavor it has right now. I think we will add a bit of salt and pepper to the breadcrumbs though, so I'll get that for you in just a sec. This looks pretty good. Plus the eggplant, we're not going to dry it or anything. It'll go into this already kind of
that might
wet.
Dilute it a little too.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you could do the extra step and put this in flour and then in the batter, but I think it sticks just fine the way that it is. So, all right, chickpea batter is done. We got breadcrumbs here. We got our eggplant. I'm just going to add a bit of salt and pepper to this, and then we'll get going. All right, so if you wouldn't mind adding a little bit of salt and pepper to the panko crumbs and toss that around. I'm going to start to batter the eggplant. Just drop it in. I'm using a fork. Just makes it a lot easier to keep your fingers a little bit cleaner. Shake off some excess. And then drop it in the crumbs. And I think it's best, yeah, just kind of toss the crumbs over, and then I would say even use your hands to press the crumbs in a little bit, or the fork. And yeah, that's pretty much what we're gonna do for all of these. I'm gonna get as far as I can through this eggplant, choosing the bigger pieces. This is a 12-ounce eggplant, so if you had a bigger one, obviously you're gonna have more eggplant to batter, and you can make 4 sandwiches or more sandwiches, but for this 12-ounce eggplant, I'd say you probably get about 4 sandwiches, so. Let's get going. So is eggplant something that you cook a lot of at home?
I do now. When I grew up, my parents didn't know what an eggplant was. They might have been able to identify it, but we certainly never.
And you grew up in Missouri, right?
Yes, but I had the opportunity to go to Greece when I was in college, and they use eggplant a lot over there. I think in the Mediterranean diet, it's a staple.
Yeah.
And I learned to eat it there, and then I make a lot of things with eggplant at home. Probably Ben's dad's favorite is eggplant parm.
Yeah.
So.
Do you make that by frying it, or do you?
I use my air fryer when I do it.
Which, by the way, Chris bought me my first air fryer, the one that
Here we go.
I use still to this day. It's been, what, like 3 years, I think?
Yeah, I think so.
The Philips one. She bought it for me for Christmas, and I'm still air frying here today.
Yeah, I love mine. Couldn't live without it.
And then do you bread it a similar way? Do you use panko, or what do you use to bread yours?
Well, usually if I'm making parm, I'll use Italian breadcrumbs, which, you know, you could use the panko for sure, maybe make it a little crispier and just add some Italian seasoning. I think it would be, you know, virtually the same thing.
And you know, I mean, Chris and Bob, they're not vegan, but you normally just use egg as your binder. Do you add like milk to it, or just straight egg?
No, just straight egg. It makes it a little stickier, I think.
Yeah. So. As I said, my favorite one my favorite vegan egg replacer in this dish is definitely chickpea flour. I've done it with rice flour and tried different batters, and I just think this one has the best flavor, the best texture, and in the end, the final product, like when you use rice flour, sometimes it can look white. You can see the rice flour through the breading. I just think this overall has the best everything. Rice flour might get a little tiny bit crispier, but I don't know, not anything that you would really notice in this, especially with the panko. So, how are we doing on the tray there? We have some room. Oh,
we're getting there.
We should be able to finish.
Yeah.
So we're gonna be as soon as we're done doing this, I'm gonna preheat my air fryer, and I'm actually using my Breville Smart Oven for this. As you can see, the rack that we have. So it'll probably take about 15 minutes to air fry all of these, and we'll flip them over about halfway. But they'll air fry on about 400 for that time. If you didn't have the smart oven style air fryer, I did this in my Philips one, which again was one that she had gotten me for Christmas. It cooks in about the same amount of time. You just probably would have to do a few batches of it because you're obviously not going to be able to.
Basket's not as quite as big.
Yeah, I would say maybe 4 or 5 max at a time, but.
Is there a secret to picking out the perfect eggplant? I didn't know. I mean, I know what I look for, but I didn't know if there was anything you look for.
I like to find them that are firm, that don't seem like they're like wilted or wrinkly. I like the skin to be shiny and to not really have any blemishes on it. But what about you? Because I heard something about like weight, like you want it, I don't.
Yeah, because they're you think they'd be really, you pick them up and they'd be heavier than they are, but they're actually kind of lightweight because of their kind of that rubbery kind of feel to them. So yeah, I just look for ones without wrinkles and blemishes. All those, sometimes they'll get those little kind of crack things, but they're not open cracks. I
guess the only problem I've ever had is when like you get one that's just really seedy. And it kind of just like, you can't really do anything with it because it just is like splitting on you because of all the seeds.
And I don't know how you figured that out.
I think it might have something to do with the weight, or I remember hearing something a long time ago that if you, if it's light for its size, like if it's large, but then I've also heard that like a heavier one means that there's more moisture, which means that it's fresher. So yeah, shiny, no blemishes, that's kind of what I go for. Exactly. All right, so we finished all of this. We used pretty much all the panko. You added a couple more rounds.
I added a few more shakes of panko.
And I'd say this was probably like a cup of chickpea flour and a few tablespoons of the liquid. So, all right, well, we're gonna turn on the air fryer, get these in there, and then we're gonna start the egg salad sandwich. So we'll be right back. The eggplant has been cooking for about 9-ish minutes now, and they're pretty golden brown on the top, if you can see here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and flip these and let them brown on the other side. The marinade really helps with the texture of them and making sure that they are kind of tender but cooked. So I'm really not concerned too much about them being cooked all the way through. I just wanna make sure that they're nice and brown on both sides. While our eggplant cooks in the air fryer, we are going to make the next sandwich filling, which is the egg salad sandwich. And the base of that is going to be tofu. So it's just like any other egg salad sandwich, but we're gonna be putting tofu in it.
No shells.
No shells or eggs.
Now what's in around the tofu?
So this is a half block of tofu, which this recipe is for 2 sandwiches and calls for 1/2 block of tofu. And this is just how I like to save my tofu if I open it and don't use the whole thing. And it's basically just water in there. So if you cut your tofu, you can't eat it all. I think this is a great way to save it in a jar. Just cover it with water. If you're gonna go more than a day or 2, just replace the water each day. Yeah, and it stays fresh. So I'm gonna drain this here and then we'll start to cut it up. Now the ingredients for the salad portion of it are pretty standard in terms of egg salad. Mayo, mustard, things like that. There is one secret ingredient, which is this right here, which is sugar. So we're just gonna add a couple of pinches of sugar in here, and that's going to imitate the Kewpie mayo. So Japanese egg salads oftentimes call for a Kewpie mayo, which is the slightly sweeter mayo. So we'll be adding a bit of sugar in there just to mimic that taste. So I'm gonna drain this, and then the rest of the things here are pretty standard mayo. So I'm just gonna have her dump the ingredients. As always, the full recipe will be linked down below. The tofu, I'm going to cut it into just about 1/4 inch thick slices, and I'm doing it on a towel here because I'm going to just sandwich it in between the towel to remove a little bit of the extra liquid. Also, this is just a firm tofu, not extra firm, not silken, just your basic.
There were different kinds.
There's a ton of different kinds. There's extra firm, super firm, medium, soft, and then you have silken, firm silken, soft silken. And I'm just gonna pat this dry. The tofu is pretty much dry. We don't need it to get super dry or anything.
So you mentioned that this was a firm tofu?
Yeah, so...
I didn't know there were different kinds of tofu.
So there's all different kinds of firmness for different, I guess, purposes. So firm, I pretty much just buy, like I buy a package of firm tofu from Costco, and that is pretty much like the workhorse that you can use for...
The go-to tofu.
Yeah, you can use it for anything, and you can even like blend it up and use it for sauces, but then also it's firm enough to be able to like fry it or to bread it or to put it in stir fries. The ones that you have to be careful of are the ones that are like in a Tetra Pak, the silken ones. Those don't really hold up. They'll just kind of crumble apart. And those are what you really want to use for sauces, for puddings, things like that. So silken is more if you're planning on like creaming it all the way up, even though there's other things you can do with it. But yeah.
So firm to keep the body up of whatever. Okay.
Yeah, and if, you know, it's sort of a personal preference, like you may decide that you like a tofu that's a lot firmer, and so you can get like a super firm, or you maybe want it a little bit softer and you get medium. So it just kind of becomes a personal preference. But like I said, I kind of just choose the medium, or not the medium, the regular firm, and that.
How long will tofu keep?
There's like on the package itself, there's an expiration date.
Oh, okay.
And I would say like if you open it and they're replacing the water, maybe like 3 or 4 days, but.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. What I've been doing here is I just sliced those thin slices the other direction until I had like 1/4 inch strips, and now I'm just going to cut it again till I get little cubes. Now, I'm the kind of person that likes my egg salad in squares. You know how there's like the little like egg cutter things? Yes. Some people just mash it up with a fork, or you know, there's a million ways you can make an egg salad, but I kind of like the square. So that's why I do it this way. If you wanted to be lazy, didn't want to cut it up, you could just, I guess, crumble it, mash it with a fork. Yeah. But I don't know, I think this is just a little bit.
It kind of mimics like a hard-boiled egg,
yeah.
I think. Consistency.
So, yeah, and it'll break up a little bit more as we mix it in with the sauce. So, all right, the tofu is all ready to go. Chris has already mixed up the mayonnaise and mustard, and so I'm just gonna dump the tofu in there. We'll mix it up, add a little bit of salt and pepper. One last thing here is that we're just going to be using regular kosher salt. There is a thing called black salt. It's an Indian salt that does have a very like high sulfur content, which makes it smell like eggs, and a lot of people like to use that in their tofu dishes to make it more like egg. I never use it. I don't care for it.
Is it expensive?
It's not terribly expensive. You can find it at Amazon. You can find it at international markets, but it's literally the smell of rotten eggs, which is literally the thing that you don't like about eggs. Exactly. So if you're not eating eggs, why are you going to duplicate the smell of the thing that you don't care for? So, all right, I'm just gonna dump this tofu in here. We'll mix it up, and we'll be ready to make sandwiches. So we decided it needed a little bit more mayo and mustard, so we're gonna add some of that. So I'm probably gonna add maybe another 2 teaspoons. Again, mayo and mustard are a personal choice, but I just really think the important thing here is just that little pinch of sugar that just kind of takes it up to that next level. So we're gonna stir this in and then put it in the fridge, let it hang out, and then we will start assembling our 2 amazing sandwiches, our eggplant katsu and our tofu egg salad. Our eggplant is completely cooked and beautifully golden brown, and we are ready to assemble this Instagrammable eggplant katsu sandwich. So I have 2 slices of Dave's Killer bread here. You can use your favorite bread. It should ideally be kind of like a fluffier white bread, just to stick with the traditional Japanese style sandwich. But Dave's Killer bread is really delicious, and it's going to work perfect for this sandwich. So I'm just adding mayo to both sides of the bread, and this is going to help when we add some of the other ingredients to keep the bread from getting soggy. All right, and for a little bit of spice, I'm going to add just a bit of sriracha. You could make a sriracha mayo if you wanted to kind of expedite this process, but I'm just going to be adding a little bit of sriracha to both sides here. One of the earlier batches I made of this sandwich, I actually made a slaw with this cabbage, which is going to go on here. And I tossed the cabbage with the sriracha mayo. That's definitely an option, but I did find that it made the bread a little bit soggy, so I like having the barrier here. Next thing is to add the eggplant, and I'm going to just be adding 4 pieces. Looks good. And let's add some pickles. If you want to grab me, let's do, how many do you think? 4 of those?
Yeah.
All right, let's do
out of here.
4 of those. You can use your hands.
I can. They smell delicious.
Now the pickles are really nice. They just add a nice bit of acidity because everything else is kind of like crunchy and a little bit spicy and creamy. So it just adds a nice acidity to it. Let's go ahead and add the, should we add the katsu sauce onto the?
Yeah, probably, because that'll wet the bread down.
So let's add a pretty generous serving of the katsu sauce just directly onto the eggplant. Top it off with some cabbage, and this is just a finely shredded cabbage.
Could you use red also? Or
Oh yeah, I'm sure, definitely.
Okay. More?
Yeah. You do want the sandwich to be fairly balanced. You don't want anything to be sort of overpowering or too much, but I think we need just a little bit more. All right, that looks good. I think we have everything on there, and then we are going to top it off. Now, the trick with this sandwich to get it to its full photogenic potential is that we are going to actually slice the edges off the 2 long sides. And I'm gonna try not to...
Give it a beard trim. So.
Right, just a little bit. Obviously, that's a snack for you later. Cut off the other side as well. All right. And then the last thing is we are going to cut this in half. Sorry, we're not going to cut it in half. We're going to cut it into thirds. And it's nice to use a serrated knife so that things don't drag too much. I'm going to swap this out and put a plate down and just show you how great it'll look.
It's delicious.
There we go. We have our Japanese katsu eggplant sandwich ready for its close-up. Our eggplant katsu sandwich is assembled and ready to be tasted, but before that we need to make our tofu egg salad sandwich. So I have 2 slices of bread here, and this is a really amazing fluffy white bread that I found. And then, oops, to one side, I don't want to overpower this, I'm going to add just a little bit of Dijon mustard. And this is just going to add just like a subtle Dijon hint without being overpowering, but you'll definitely notice something there. It's like, hey, wait, what is that? Is there Dijon mustard in this? There is. So Chris, if you want to go ahead and pile that up. And then we're going to do the same kind of cutting method as we did last time. We're going to just slice the edges off, and then we're going to cut it into thirds.
Want a little more on there?
Yeah, let's do a little more. Do we have enough for another sandwich in there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So again, this batch makes 2 sandwiches. So put the lid on top.
Bread looks yummy.
This bread is so good. Like, I wanted to use this for both sandwiches, but I ran out of this bread. Or I only had enough for one batch of sandwiches, so I decided to save this one for the egg salad. So again, slicing the edges off. Don't waste them, they're a great snack. Trying to do this backhanded isn't easy. And then I'm going to slice this into thirds. Now that it's sliced into thirds, I'll set it upright on the plate. And this one too is ready for its close-up. Beautiful, look how fluffy that bread is. There we go, tofu egg salad.
Oh, it looks very pretty.
It is time for our favorite part of the whole show, which is the taste test, where we get to eat. So let's start with the Eggplant Katsu sandwich. And let's give it a taste.
It's really crispy.
Can you tell that it's air fried? Like, is that something that like stands out?
No, but I like the crunchy, the slaw, and the pickle, and the sauce. It's really good, the combo.
There's even like a little bit of spice at the end. A little bit of spice in the pickles, plus the bit of sriracha, I think kind of comes through at the end. But yeah, the eggplant too, I feel like it's not overcooked or anything. It's not soggy or stringy.
Great flavor.
Yeah, it's like really full of flavor, and I just think it doesn't, I don't know, a lot of times eggplant, if it's overcooked, just gets like mush and soggy, and
exactly.
I think it
This
really
has stayed really crispy.
Yeah, it holds
Very
up,
good.
and yeah, the panko too is just really nice and crispy in this, and you do want to be careful of how you layer the sandwich, that you're not, you know, putting too much watery things onto, you know, the components that can get a little bit soggy. But all right,
You're missing out, people.
make it yourself. Again, the entire recipe is linked below. So let's put these down and try the next one. So this is our tofu egg salad. And this is the fluffier bread. It's I forget the brand. I'll have it linked below, but it's so nice and soft. You did good.
I feel like I'm back at school. This was a staple in my lunchbox
Yeah.
growing up, and my mom would have it at bridge parties. And
Chris was also saying that, I mean, you could use this at like bridal showers or
baby
parties.
shower, yeah, big great sandwich.
Cut it into triangles or other shapes. Cut it in the shape of a
But
diaper.
it
Is that
has
a thing?
It has a consistency of a hard-boiled egg.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really good.
I think this is
really
one of
good.
those. Go ahead. Sorry. I think it's one of the few things that, like, when you eat it, like, I think, like, you know, some vegan meats or mock meats or something, you could say that you might be able to fool somebody. But I think if you were truly to give this to somebody and tell them it was egg salad, I don't know if they would.
Particularly, I think the mustard gives it just that little bit of a yellow color.
Yeah. And then I think a nice bit of acidity too. It's, I don't know, it's a perfect egg salad. So, well, we have 2 sandwiches to finish here. And so thank you for watching, Chris. Thank you for coming. And
I enjoyed being here.
happy early Mother's Day to you and all the other mothers out there. I'm not sure when this exactly will come out, but it'll be right around Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day. And
Happy birthday, Ben.
oh yeah, Ben's birthday is coming up too. Is it the day before Mother's Day? After Mother's Day?
It's close.
So go ahead and wish him a happy birthday in the comments below. He's working so hard to get this video to you, filming it, editing it. So thank you, Ben, and happy birthday. So thank you all for watching. Thanks to all the new subscribers out there. Hopefully I'll be at 10,000 very soon, maybe when this video comes out. So thanks to everyone who subscribed and all the new subscribers.
Share it with your friends.
Share it with your friends. Yeah, put it on Facebook. Follow me on Instagram if you're not already at monsonmadethis. And if you aren't already following me on Patreon, follow the link below and you can subscribe there, and you have access to Monson Ate This, which is the after show, where I'm going to be eating what I've made in this video. So I'll be eating these sandwiches and having a little bit of a more one-on-one casual conversation with you. So thank you again for everyone for watching. Hit subscribe if you haven't yet already. Give this a thumbs up. Comment below if you like this video.
Share, share, share.
Share, share, share. So thanks again. I will see you next time with another recipe video. Thanks, Chris. Bye.
Bye.